grand rising. It's a great day. It's a wealthy Wednesday, but the day you might listen to it, it might be a wealthy Friday. Like we're not gonna put the wealth on the day. But I am so excited to welcome you all back to the powerhouses of the global corporate stage. And this guest here, y'all, he knocked me on my feet because he was like, listen, I know what you usually talk about. We appreciate the corporate inspirations. We love their journey, but I got some issues at work and I want to be sure that everybody knows how to move forward. And that's what this podcast is for. So without further ado, I am going to introduce to some, but most of all, be able to let you all hear from so many of you all in the world. Mr. Stephen Washington. He is a professor at Lonestar College here in Houston, Texas. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm great this morning, and a little title different, Doctor Stephen Washington, but
Yeah.
all is well, Doctor. I go by either Doctor or Professor, for my
Mm,
students, and I teach
mm.
mathematics over at Lone Star College, Houston North. I've been teaching mathematics for going on 15 years for Lone Star College now. I also got a couple of years in advising. I was a veterans advisor at the start of my career at Lone Star. So.
Yeah, welcome, well, welcome, Dr. Washington. And thank you so much to come into the powerhouses of the global corporate stage. And as you all know, a powerhouse is somebody who is dynamic, effective, and unstoppable in achieving success. But in order to be unstoppable, you're going to have some things that make you just feel like you want to stop, that makes you pause a little bit. And one of the big topics that we're talking about today is how do I set boundaries with my coworker? I know how many of you all were like, if Sister Mary over here say one more thing to me, she gonna get these hands, and I'm not gonna pray for her. Like it just sometimes it's not that great. So how do you set boundaries with your colleagues? Like what's one thing that you can help people, especially you said you've been doing this for 15 years. A lot of people, they might be 5 years or maybe just 1 month on their job, and they're like, look, this person is calling me at all hours of the night. Like how do you set boundaries with your coworkers? How do you set boundaries with your colleagues, your coworkers, your boss? How do you do that?
Yes, this is a great question. Um, so I believe, in my work experience, and part of my work experience is also 4 years in the United States Navy before I came to Lone Star. And I consider also part of my work experience some of the time that I spent in graduate school because I worked part time as a teacher assistant. So well, as far as boundaries, I think as you get into your work environment, I think about a couple of things. I think about purpose and also the season. So the purpose of the relationship and the season of the relationship, and that's in the work context. Well, if you have the purpose nailed down, like for myself, for example, most of my career I've been a math professor. So my normal progression of relationships would be with other math professors and then with professors in general. There's also the relationship I would have with my supervisor, who's the administrator. So it kind of starts right there. So also, there's also the percentages, of course, there's work-life balance. So, what I do at work, sometimes when you're working in an online environment, that can be kind of challenging because, I mean, you may have, then as a professor, there's also the connection I have with students. So you can have students emailing you all times of morning. So you definitely have
Mm,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. So you got
Exactly.
three layers of
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Wow.
It's very layered. So, and it's understanding where each of those layers form and what's the proper boundary on each of those layers. I'm kind of old school. I'm kind of used to that 9 to 5 kind of work setting, even though my days sometimes end a lot sooner, being in higher ed. And so, but if I have the online component with the students, well, so some students may be working 9 to 5 also. So I have to reserve some time outside of that, maybe 1 or 2 days a week into the evening to allow them to correspond with me. And so purpose, and it's all what's practical in the purpose, right? If you have your student hours set at, I don't know, 7 in the morning, that's not good because most students are not showing up at 7 in the morning. So it's being practical also with that purpose. And then the second one is the season. Like sometimes you may start
Mm.
at the start of your career or at a particular institution. You may be doing a type of job, and also you may be looking to move up in the organization once you kind of get your feet on the ground. So normally you're probably going to form different relationships. But over time, like I've been with Lone Star, that's like I said, about 16 years. And so
Wow.
now I believe I'm more at a plateau. Not saying that I'm through with my growth, but I'm at a different place now than I was at the beginning. And so my relationships are different. Like some of the relationships that I had in the beginning of my career, I don't necessarily have them at this point. Some I still do. So sometimes those relationships are seasonal. And I think the most important thing is realizing when it's time to maybe move on from those previous relationships, but
Right, right.
also knowing which relationships to hold on to. And sometimes that
Yeah.
can be challenging.
Yeah, I love that. So, for those of you all who are just joining in, we have Dr. Stephen Washington here, and we are talking about how do we set those boundaries with our colleagues. And he just touched on a lot of incredible good things. One of the ones that I had no idea for not just you as a professor, but also our teachers out there. I know for me, you have only 3 layers, but my high schoolers and especially the kindergartners, and elementary students, they have 4 layers. So they got the parents, they got
Mhm.
their colleagues, they got the boss, but they also have those kids too. And as you were talking, I was like, I know I have did some boundaries, but it's because I'm at work and then when I get home, I get the email, I'm having the conversation with my child. So then I'm emailing you at 9 o'clock at night saying we need to talk the very next day. And so I want to apologize on national TV. Like I am global, this global podcast. Like I apologize to all the teachers who I did because, like you said, it's that recognition of hey, their purpose is they're there from 6 o'clock most of the times to 5. And they not going to be checking their emails at 9. So if I'm talking about let's meet again at 9, that's just not going to happen. So I really do appreciate that. So for those of y'all who are parents, don't email that teacher. There's now on Google where you can say send at a later time. Just send it at 8 a.m. in the morning and like let's help to set those boundaries so that way they can get to the purpose of being with the students and things. I think for me, one of the things like when we were talking about what would be the topic for today is how do you know when it's time that you even need to set a boundary? Because I feel like, everything goes great. And then you got that one person you're like, I don't like what they doing here. I need to say something. And then you let it pass. And then they do something again. And you're like, no, now you really are trying me. So how do you set that up? Is it like through the like the first time you're meeting with them and you let them know like hey this is what it is, or is it not until the incident happens and then you address it immediately so that way you can move forward?
So I think it depends on the severity of the issue. Um, some issues that are on the shallow end of severity, not as severe, those you may be able to address more informally. Uh, you and somebody maybe having I don't know, coffee or something, or maybe stopping by someone's office. But then there are those who go up the scale and are really severe, which may result in the severing of ties. I mean, it just depends on the intensity of that um, of that conflict. I think so, but I think you definitely have to address it. You don't want to avoid it, and it really depends on how close, how in close quarters that you're working with this person, this individual. Is this somebody that you have to work with every day? Is it somebody that you only meet with once a month? So I think all those things have to be taken into consideration. So
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that valuable insight. I think for me, when I first meet with people, especially because I job hop a lot. So I salute you for saying, but I also recognize that comfort zone trap. And the fact that people, try to sometimes take advantage, they'll be like, oh, it's just Dr. Washington. We know he'll do it. Or, that's just lovely. And we know she'll, take care of it. And they begin to take you for granted. But in the past, I'll say, because I worked at Facebook 9, I'll say past 10 years, I had 12 different bosses that I had to work with just because of like layoffs, reorgs. And I remember, you having your first meeting, and I always like let them know, like, hey, I will be your best success story or you will regret like not being able to help me moving forward. And I would like I wouldn't say like you will regret. I would say like I will be your best success story or I will be someone that you will look back and be like, I wish I had invested more in love. And that's just up to you. Like you either will be like looking back, being able to celebrate me because we connected with each other. If I tell you my dream is to go here and you are blocking my success, then we can't be beneficial because I will work, tooth and nail for you. Like I want you to succeed because my goal was if my manager looks good, then I'm right underneath them, then they can help me go higher. Like you move, I move, you move, I move. And what I often would find is it was like that first meeting, and then I would be with them for a year and they would forget. So then we would have to have that check in of like, the question that I would ask is like, how do you prefer that I communicate with you? And when it comes, it's that like, look, you did something bad, but I don't really want to point it out to you. Like you send me an email at 11 o'clock at night, right before I'm going on vacation to tell me to take care of something. That's not gonna happen. So like, how do you prefer that you would like to be communicated with before it's time for you to go on vacation? And I noticed that by asking them that question, then it really helped. But oftentimes they were sometimes okay with it. Like I had one boss, she had no life. I just feel like she just didn't have a life. She would answer emails all types of the night. She would be available. She would be in Chicago. Then she would be in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, you don't need to be these places. So sometimes it's hard to set those boundaries if those people themselves don't know the boundaries. So how can you help those people who might be the ones who don't really know how to do the boundaries because they're giving their all to the company?
so it's interesting. I want to touch on one of those points, lovely, that you hit, and you talked about the sharing of when you shared with your supervisor about where you wanted to um, go. Sometimes this is a challenge in determining how much, as professionals, how much we should share, because sometimes we come into our organization. with a certain job title, a certain job role, but maybe over time we may lose interest in that and we want to do something else. Well, sometimes it's challenging when you were hired to do one job and maybe you want to do another job, but you just feel concerned about, well, how much of this can I truly share? Um, if I share so much, will my supervisor, whoever, feel like, well, he's sorry about that. He's losing interest in this, so maybe I should be on the lookout. So that might be can be considered another type of boundary. How much you share with different people on the job about your dreams, your motivations, where you want to be in the next 5 years or so. I think I was sitting in I was actually sitting in your workshop a couple of weeks ago. When you were telling us about LinkedIn and just talking about, blocking certain individuals from being strategic about it, when you want to move into certain places. So that's another issue because there is some risk involved in these work relationships, right? And how much we do share.
Absolutely, 100%. I think it's a balance between it because if I don't share it with you, however, if you are in a position to make it,
Right.
so when I was a manager, I was very, very shocked of the conversations that I was invited to versus when I was just an individual contributor or when I was a let's say like a professor versus when you're a student. When you're a student, you're told everything. But when you're a professor, there's actual faculty meetings, there's people who are discussing and learning all of these insights. So I have known within my career when I am upfront to say, hey, this truly is where I want to be. Oftentimes, I would say 70% of the time, then that manager will speak about me in the rooms like, oh, this is opening up in this department, and they'll be able to do it. Because as a manager, we recognize people do get antsy. But if Lovely leaves the company, let's say Lone Star, if Lovely leaves
Mhm.
Lone Star and goes to a big competitor like Houston Community College, you have no access to Lovely anymore. But if Lovely just goes from Lone Star within another campus at Lone Star because she's promoted, I can still reach out to Lovely and say, "Oh, remember you did that program? We want to still keep it, and now we want to train this individual." Now you still get that insight. So it's often, like you said, better sometimes for them to promote within than to lose me and you get nothing because I'm not going to share that stuff with you anymore. I'm under a non-compete. I can't do those things. Like it was good for when you were there, but you have access to nothing now anymore. So, like you said, it is definitely a delicate balance. But like y'all see back here, and those of you all who are listening through audio, block your boss. That sometimes is the case. I stand by that hashtag, tweet that, block your boss. Because let's say that just this same scenario that we're meeting, everybody that I know right now, even myself, with me being a business owner, I am doing end of year evaluations. Lovely, what did you do well? What do you need to improve on? What do you truly want to be? I have amazing people. I've had professors now on here, software engineers, and now I'm like, who do I not have? I want more people. So I'm asking myself that you all are making these evaluations for the performance reviews at the end of the year. Most companies do it are right at the beginning of the year. So that's a conversation right now that most people are having anyway. And if you tell your boss, your colleague, hey, I want to go here as a part of that boundary, and they say, oh, yeah, yeah, maybe next year, it's a whole nother year of my life that
Mhm.
I am here versus going out somewhere else. And we may think that there is a recession, but there are over 5 million jobs in the US that are available on LinkedIn alone. If you are in UK, because I know we have a big audience there, 100,000 open roles. So it's that delicate balance of like, yes, I need to tell you because you're my boss, right? Your whole description is to up level the team. Like when I was a manager, it was based on the promotion. So yeah, I get it's that delicate balance, but it's like, what do I do if I shared with you my goals and dreams and aspirations and you still do nothing about it, you know?
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, and it depend, and it again, it depends on the work environment. Like the environment that I work
Mhm.
in is more collegial. It's not just academia, and at the on the community college level. So we work together in teams. I mean, we may not be competing with one another as much as let's say if you're in a corporate environment, but I mean, there are times where we're trying to maybe get some faculty excellence award or get some grant or something of that nature. So there may be some competition in that, but for the most part, we're here for the students, trying to work together and make sure the students have everything they need, and trying to make a better working environment for each other. I believe so. It's a mostly it's a healthy work environment. So
Yeah, mostly, most of the time. Everything is everything is supposed to be seriously, like, most of the time, even with corporate, your colleagues are your team. It's
mhm,
it's not academia, but you're pushing the agenda of the company forward. I think where it becomes that setting a boundary piece is, and why I said to block your boss is because sometimes there aren't opportunities for you to move forward any longer. But let's say there is this incredible program at this other company, and you're like, oh my gosh, I brought it to this company 5 years ago, and they still never listened to me. And now this is an opportunity for me to have a role and go further and do things. Then you may want to, necessarily like move. And that's where it comes to block your boss because from my understanding of like how it works for academia or corporate, there are rounds to every single interview.
yeah,
So I work at this college or
mm,
this corporation, then I want to go to somewhere else. First, I have to go with the recruiter or the admissions
and
person. Then the next thing you meet with the dean or the vice president. And then the next thing you do is you're meeting with your colleagues to say, like, hey, I think you're good, but will you be good with your coworkers?
right,
So if you block your boss, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to reach out to you, be like, Stephen may work here, so I want to connect with them. And they're like, well, why are you connecting with these people over here? So that's why I say to block your boss, because most people won't even take that first step of applying to another corporation or applying to another college because they're afraid of, oh my God, what will my boss think? They're gonna see this information. But if you just share with your boss year after year after year, I want to get promoted. I want to have this. And right now, like you said, it may not be an opportunity to grow, but this other college over here opened up a new campus. They might be doing a new program and it gives you an opportunity to grow. Why wouldn't you do it if the only thing is stopping you is because of your boundaries and your commitment to this company? That's why I say like block your boss. Not
and,
just block your boss, just block your boss, but you can, but
and
it's a purpose, as we say.
and I'm going to add this to what you're saying is that in the type of work I do, sometimes there's a lot of opportunities to do an interim position, and it's mostly for the staff administration side. Like you could go serve as a vice president somewhere as an interim, but you have to be selected for that, and it's a temporary assignment. But sometimes before you take on an assignment like that, it's best to have as much information as possible before you make the move. So sometimes you want to talk to your supervisor ahead of time, maybe some other folks who know. So before you invest all that time and effort, into that temporary assignment, you'll know that, hey, okay, this is maybe what I can get from it, and it just won't end up like, what, man, I should not have done that or whatever, and you kind of messed up some relationships along the way. So a lot of times it's about, like I say, just having a different relationships, being able to communicate with people, and just being able to make the best decisions for your career and everything going forward. So
100%, 100%. Everything that we said, from setting boundaries with your colleagues, going for promotions and doing evaluations, do you go here, do you go there? It's all based off of your own scenario. And it's based off of what's your purpose. Like, is your purpose to go further? Have you tried? Have you did this? And sometimes, like you said, if you are afraid of doing it, which I'm gonna shout out LinkedIn again. Hey, LinkedIn, give me a call. Or
mhm,
shout out LinkedIn again. But sometimes it may be best if you're like, hey, I really don't want my boss, like we talked about, to know that I'm looking. I don't want my dean to know. I don't want my manager to know. I don't want the person who has authority over me to know that I'm even considering it. It may be good to talk to the people that work at that company and just say like, "Hey, I'm interested in this. How
mhm.
does this go?" Like, you don't have to share with me any personal information, but I really just want to know, what does this position look like? How did you excel at this? Because I'm interested in, moving my career forward.
Mhm. And you'll never be, you're never going to be 100% sure, right? Um,
Right.
there's an organization that I joined that's associated with the college, and I joined about 6 years ago, and I wasn't sure about it. It was like, well, there's not that many people in here that look like me, and I'm not sure about being a part of this organization. And so the 6 years I've been in, it's been an interesting journey, but I think that journey, as far as being in the lead, may have the season may be ending, so it's something I got to deal with later on, shortly, this week. But yeah, so sometimes those things happen where there comes a time where we have to figure to exit off the stage of one relationship, and then enter into the stage of another relationship. And sometimes it can be challenging, right? Because you get used to going in one direction, then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, hey, I need to change direction. So, but change is one of those things that's constant. So, just got to be ready for it.
I love that. Yeah, you do. You have to be ready for this. This was such a great conversation. Before we get out of here, one of the questions that I ask all of my guests, especially right now, this is really, really timely for us to know and get some insights into this regarding your quote. Like, what is a quote in helping you to set boundaries, to help you to be motivated? Like, what's one quote that you use to help you to stay motivated?
Well, um, money uh, you can get back, time you can't get back. So
Mm,
make sure you make the best use out of your time.
I love that. I love that. Make sure you make the best use of your time. And I think for me, that I really, really love when it comes in direction of like setting boundaries. What are things that you need to be able to do, is that wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you would have preferred to talk. Because oftentimes, for setting boundaries and having a purpose, career, and knowing what to do next, sometimes the greatest lesson that we will get is the wisdom of the reward for just listening to what people have to say. You may come to Dr. Washington and you're like, "Hey, I have this problem," and in your mind you're like, "Nope, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna do it my way." But you will get a reward just for taking the time to listen when you would have preferred to talk, when you would have preferred to act. Sometimes just take a moment to listen to other people. I think that's like really crucial. So I love that quote. I use that in times of knowing when to move forward, when not to move forward. So, uh, how can people be able to learn more about you? How can people connect with you? Like, this was such a great conversation. How can people learn more?
Okay, so I know on this platform, this I guess more is more of a LinkedIn. So I do have a LinkedIn account, and I think I'm not sure if my information is on here, um, but I have that, and I have a Facebook account also. So those two are, I think, connected here. You know, I'm on the other social media platforms as well, TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram, but I don't use those. Those are more social. So, um, but yeah, that's it.
Good deal, good deal. So you can be able to reach Dr. Stephen Washington, who is a powerhouse at Lone Star. He truly is a corporate inspiration. He is inspiring children. He is inspiring himself with his magnitude of service that he has and all of the insights that he has been able to bring. I think out of all of the subject, math, science and English, those are one of the key that you need to graduate. So you may see him if you all choose to go to Lone Star. Please reach out to him at LinkedIn. He will be tagged in all of this when it goes live again. So you will be connected to another powerhouse. Thank you all so much for joining the powerhouse of the global corporate stage. I am your host, Lovely Marshall, the accelerator for powerhouses. If you want to join our hashtag powerhouse journey, you can be able to reach me at I am Lovely Marshall on all social media platforms. Until next time, remember, you